maybe someone asks.
Okay, we are on the record.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Great. What does a good article content profile have in common with a black? I'm not going to wait for answers. I'll just solve it. They both feed on my I'm just imagining the calls. Yes, I did come up with that on my own, and that is also probably the reason why I work in tech and I don't work in stand-up comedy. This talk is mainly geared towards sites and apps which are content heavy, so like publishers or online newspaper sites that have a bunch of content. I want to talk about the role of the content profile in analytics, in segmentation, and also in targeting, and then go on a little ramble about why I think it could play a crucial role in the post-third-party cookie world. And in this grand opening joke, I already started with a little reference to web crawling, which will be important later. But let's start from the beginning. What is a content profile? When I say content profile, I'm talking about any sort of content metadata, things that help to further classify content pieces and help to understand content consumption on your site. Stuff that goes beyond the title or the URL of a page, stuff like tags and keywords, descriptions, author, dates, themes, locations, topics, and many more. In analytics, the usual way to get this kind of content metadata for refined analysis from the editor or content producer into your analytics tool is usually tag first, right? So pushing keywords, tags, etc. in the measurement request, either from a JavaScript data layer or directly from the CMS that you're working with. And most tools also offer the option of onboarding such data by uploading it after data collection. But no matter how you do it, the core challenge remains. That content metadata has to be provided in-house from you, i.e. from the content producer. And that comes with a lot of caveats. It is difficult to organize, difficult to structure, and difficult to maintain, at least from my experience. Do you want editors to manually add all this extra info for each of their articles? How do you make sure that everyone always sticks to one data structure and one taxonomy? How do you ensure that this information is always available on page load, technically? And what is the update process if content changes over time? Does the editor go in and edit the metadata for an article that he released 2 weeks ago? I doubt it. And from working with plenty of large-scale publishers in the past, I have seen that this usually ends up being a lot more of a mess than it has to be. And I've seen firsthand how much of a struggle that can be. Now, that is where automatic algorithm-based content analysis comes in. And just so you're aware, I have my presentation, so I don't see the Remo screen right now, but I hope that I'll have a couple minutes after this talk for questions, Q&A, and knowledge sharing as well. But I'll just do my little ramble, and then we'll get into the interactive part. Anyway, this can be a huge struggle, and it's very important to have proper content metadata. And that is where automatic algorithm-based content analysis comes in, right? There are various tools out there that use machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand text and automatically create richer content profiles of analytics. And the company that I get to work for is called Piano. We have one of such tools in the stack, and that is what kind of sparked my interest in the field in the first place. But this session is not about one tool in particular, but more about the general concept of using these rich content profiles and what they're good for. But of course, I have the most experience with seeing the Piano content profiles in action, right? In our case, the crawler is triggered by basic tracking implementation for analytics, which is very handy, right? You just drop your page tag or your JavaScript, you send a request to the analytics solution, And as soon as the page receives a few page views, it is added to a crawl queue. And then the URL is crawled using Chromium. This crawling includes basically extracting all the information from the site. I mean, I'm sure you know how web crawling works. It extracts title, body, heading, all the text on the site, all the images on the site, makes a thumbnail. It looks at meta text, parses meta text, also looks at standardized markup. For example, if your site has a schema markup, that is kind of the semantic markup that goes on top of the HTML, and also possible to extract custom markup to tell the crawler to look for custom markup that you might have put on the page. Now, when the crawler has gathered all that information, it goes to processing the raw text. And this is really where the magic happens in the back end, using a variety of NLP techniques. And NLP stands for natural language processing. And this is all stuff, look at this list. I mean, this is all the behind-the-scenes magic that the data science team has put in place. It works with things like tokenization, n-grams, a lot of dictionary lookups, obviously, to make sure to classify each kind of content metadata in the right bucket. Also things like sentiment analysis and so on. Of course, this is all kind of happening behind the scenes. And me personally, I've dabbled with a couple of these, but I'm in no means an expert, and I could pull this and I could put this together on my own. But that's why there's data science teams that work behind the scenes on these kinds of crawler products. And as soon as the NLP algorithms have been applied to the content, then it goes into analyzing and classifying that content, like splitting the URL into useful parts, computing weights for items, so how important is a specific entity for an article, and also classifying it into taxonomies or into dictionaries like the IAB classifications, and so on. Now, this is all the whole process of how the crawler works and creates a rich content profile. But all of this magic obviously is happening under the hood. So for the business that is using this, it is as simple as dropping a page tag and then letting the crawler do the magic. And the magic usually happens within a minute or less, because it is important to have a profile available quickly for immediate action. Because if you release an article, you cannot wait 5 days for the content profile to be available, because then it'll be out of date anyway. And also, if an article changes, it'll be recrawled automatically to make adjustments. So you always have an up-to-date content profile. Now, what does all that result in? That results in a rich content profile for each article. And of course, these will look different depending on the tool that you're using, but we'll just look at one example here. And you got the article on the left, you got the resulting content profile on the right. And the first thing that is important to note, a good content profile is not just a set of key value pairs or unstructured keywords. You can see in this example that each keyword is being grouped and put in a bucket. So there are even nuances of semantics within the content profile. An example is, not only do we know that Mercedes is relevant for this particular article, we also know that Mercedes is a company or a brand that is relevant for this article, which is a very important nuance when it comes to setting up user segments for targeting after. In this content profile, there are entities that are important for the content. Then we have concepts, which grasps what the article is about, themes or topics. In this case, electric vehicles or battery cost. Then the content profile extracts relevant people or locations that are mentioned in the article, not just where it's being released, but also locations that are relevant for this article. Another cool thing is the sentiment analysis that is being carried out, and this plays a major role when it comes to brand safety, right? Sentiment analysis classifies content based on the text if it's positive or negative, and gives a probability of how positive and how negative it is. And this plays an important role when it comes to brand safety, when you want to protect the brand, and let's say you don't want to place a certain ad next to negative content, right? Or you don't want to put a specific offer on negative or positive content, right? Besides, there's an automatic IAB classification for each article, which is the category taxonomy by the International Advertising Bureau. And you can also see on the right side the level of significance for each item of the profile, right? It gives it a weight between 0 and 1. And this just tells you how important or how significant a specific concept, entity, person, location is for the article. Right, you have all of this for all of your pages in theory, right? That's all very cool and interesting. Looks great, but why and how am I building the bridge to the post third-party cookie world? To put it simply, because once we have such a detailed profile of every piece of content on our site, we in turn also have such a detailed profile of every user that frequently visits our site. And the content profile is another powerful pillar of first-party information that we can accumulate about our users. Contextual profiling and content interest are significant characteristics of the user base. And why would we not make it as elaborate and as detailed and as good as we can? Picture like this. This is just kind of a visualization that I put together to kind of help me visualize what we can do with a content profile. You have a database of your customer data, wherever you have that, right? And in theory, it exists of unknown users and known users. Unknown users are the ones that haven't signed in, and known users are the ones that have already bought a subscription, signed up to a newsletter, that have logged in to your page in any kind of way with an identifier like an email. And usually for the unknown users, you have a couple of data points available. You have their technical profile, stuff like their devices, OS, browsers, geolocation, everything that is being picked up by a basic GA implementation, for example, right? GA, AT Internet, Piano Analytics, Adobe, what have you. Then on top of that, you have their on-site behavior, right? For unknown users, even if they don't sign in, you know how many page views they had, how many times they come back, the visit frequency, how much time they spend on a page, and so on. And then the third pillar, you also have their interest, their content profile, which is based, as I said, or can be based on contextual NLP analysis of their interest. And this is a very important third pillar because it helps you classify your unknown users even more. Now, all of this is what I would consider first-party data, which is all based on consent, which is very, very important in this day and age. You see that the very, very bottom layer, or the foundation of everything, is consent. We have to move to a consent-based data collection model, right? This is first-party data, which means that it's being passively collected in a first-party context. So the whole, all of this you can get from how people interact with your site and your site only. And it's being passively collected by a tag, by a crawler, and similar functionalities, right? Now, you also have the second bucket, the known users. And the known users, of course, for those, you have the exact kind of data. However, on top of that, for the known users, you also have what I call zero-party data. And zero-party data is everything that the user gives you voluntarily. So this is stuff when they fill out their profile, you can prompt them with progressive profiling, ask for gender, birth date, basically anything. And that can be accumulated throughout your relationship with the user through progressive profiling, as I said, through quizzes, surveys, panels, and so on. So basically anything that the user gives you voluntarily, you also have for your known users. And of course, if you have multiple domains or multiple publications, multiple brands on your site, then this will also be available for your known users because they sign in with the same identification management system across different platforms. I'm aware that the right bucket is going to be a lot smaller for most publishers or for most sites. However, that doesn't mean that you cannot use this entire pot of data for everyone. And this is because as soon as you have this kind of elaborate first-party and zero-party data about your customers, you can then use this entire bucket in your customer base platform or in a specific DMP to apply AI algorithms and machine learning, for example, to do things like lookalike modeling to fill those gaps even for your unknown users and make assumptions or extrapolate and say these people have these characteristics as well with a high statistic probability. So for example, if I know of 5% of my users, which are my known users, I know the gender, I can put all of their content profile, their on-site behavior, their technical profile into a bucket, compare it with the unknown users, and then say, hey, find their digital twins in that data set and kind of extend my female data, my female users, and find their digital twins and say, of these unknown users, I don't know if they're female, but they very likely are. And all of this, again, happening based on consent and based on your own first-party data. And that basically sums up how you can use all of the data with the right AI technologies in the DMP to kind of make assumptions even about your unknown users to target them correctly. And when I speak about targeting, just a quick word on activation. With the right tool set, we can now use this entire pot of data for many, many use cases, right? For example, serving each user, known or unknown, the right piece of content, serving them the right offer, a newsletter sign up, a subscription offer, or even a product if you have an e-commerce store, or even if you are depending on ad revenue, serving them the right ad in a one-to-one personalization, right? And this kind of personalized targeting can work in real time within a session and between page views. So if, for example, an unknown user comes to your site, browses around, and a specific page view now statistically qualifies them as a potential subscriber based on your entire data that you have about your existing subscribers, then that is the moment within the session between page views where you can hit them with a right offer for a test subscription, stuff like that. Now, to wrap it up here, this kind of approach might be even better for publishers than the old third-party tracking, because my feeling has always been that big data user targeting, mostly based on third-party data sold by data brokers, has always been flawed. And we've just simply lived in like happy oblivion and just perfectly fine with our cognitive dissonance. And this is not just a feeling, but it is also backed by significant studies. And one paper that I'm linking when I'm sharing the slides, you can click into this, actually a really interesting story. One paper by the MIT Group M and Melbourne Business School found that the accuracy of predicting gender, right, in large third-party data sets that that publishers used to use, that were sold by common data brokers, the accuracy for predicting gender is approximately 50%. You might literally be better off flipping a coin or using math.random if you're a front-end guy. But that just strengthens my feeling. We are better off collecting less data, but therefore data that is subject to consent and data that is accurate. And one pillar of such data could be, full circle, a rich content profile, like we talked about in this session. And then use that data, the smaller amount, but the more accurate data, to fuel AI processes such as lookalike modeling or propensity scoring, propensity modeling, to make the most out of these data sets. And in general, we should choose direct data over indirect data and work on shortening the data supply chain, in my opinion. And maybe even moving back to more contextual targeting wouldn't be all that bad either. And I know that we're close on time. I'm just seeing this right now. I think I took a little bit more than I wanted. I'm sorry. Feel free to continue the discussion. I'll be in the AT Internet or Piano booth all day anyway, and I'm happy to speak. Thank you so much for listening.
Nicolas. We have some question. I don't know if you are able to see the Q&A tab on the chat, or if you want, I can read for you the question.
Right. No, I can see it. Both of them are kind of around consent. For unknown users, how are you obtaining consent, and what are you disclosing that is being tracked? Of course, the consent works the exact same as with your analytics platform. So for unknown users, it is going to be managed by first-party cookies. No consent, no tracking. That's how it should always be, in my opinion. And consent to lookalike audience. If you obtain consent for using the data for analytics and measurement purposes, there should not be a problem with applying lookalike modeling on your end, because the lookalike modeling is happening in your own first-party data context. There's no data exchange or any kind of third-party data. I hope that kind of
Okay, so here we have some. Nicolas, for a no user, how are you obtaining consent, and what are you disclosing that is being tracked?
Yeah, I kind of tried to speak to that earlier. Obtaining consent management platforms, cookie banners, and so on, and explaining in the privacy policy the kind of data that is being tracked for a person, and it shouldn't differ. Like these questions, it doesn't matter that you're using a crawler to create a richer content profile of the site, because this is all. It doesn't matter how you put together the content profile in terms of consent for analytics, right? So this shouldn't differ from any other analytics implementation. So all these questions are very relevant, but they're not different when you work with richer content profiles, in my opinion.
Okay. Second one. Hi, Nicolas. You mentioned consent to lookalike audience. How do you allow for Article 21 and 22 plus the right for user to opt out of direct marketing?
Same response. Exact same topics or exact same discussions that we would have if we were to implement any other tracking solution. And I'm also seeing the third one about NLP language dictionaries besides English language. Very interesting. The company that I work for has a much harder time. I think Anissa is German as well. I'm German. And it has a harder time with the German language, but it's constantly being updated. And right now we are doing it for, at least my company, that's all I can speak for, because I haven't tested many of the other solutions, but we're doing it for definitely more than 20 languages. And it's working well. We haven't heard much feedback, even though I know that it sometimes struggles with capitalization of nouns in the German language for whatever reason. But that's why it's constantly being updated and improved.
Okay, another one is how is your experience with the NPL language? Okay, no problem. The chat, blah blah blah. We have Anisa that said the problem is high contextual languages and the irony, sarcasm. Okay, the using of irony and sarcasm.
Yes, of course, but maybe one word for that. Absolutely, irony, sarcasm is a challenge, but especially for contextual languages or local languages, these crawlers or the way the NLP processing works can also be adjusted. So for example, if like specific local terms are being used constantly, then this can be fed into the algorithms. And for example, our team work a lot with local newspapers. For example, one in Cologne, where they just have the Cologne slang and certain words that you can feed in and help classify and help improve the processing.
Okay. Any other question? We have 3-4 minutes if you want. Don't be shy. You have the opportunity to ask Nicolas whatever you want. Okay, I think we don't have any other question. So right now, thank you so much for your time, Nicolas, for your presentation.
Oh, no worries. Thank you all. Thank you all for
just one in the corner. What would be your setup?
What will be your setup? In this case, the setup is pretty simple. It comes, again, I can only speak for the stack that Piano has, or Piano Analytics, formerly AT Internet has. The setup is we're using the analytics integration, and the rest just happens. So as soon as a page view, as soon as a page gets 5 page views, the crawler is sent, and then the crawler automatically feeds this richer content profile into the analytics platform, and then you can use all of that for targeting right away in the same kind of interface. This is just how it works for me. In other ways, or in other solutions or in other stacks, maybe you have a more modular setup where you assemble a content profile for a content ID, and then you could potentially feed that content profile based on the ID into your analytics platform, where you're tracking the content ID tag first. So there's definitely multiple ways depending on how modular your stack is set up.
So any other one? Not just after the thank you and the greetings. So right now we're on time. Okay. Again, thank you so much, Nicolas.
Thank you.
And see you all after the break, and grab some food, talk with each other, and stalk Nicolas. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.